During training, we would do this thing called 100 Navy SEALs. It's like 300 burpees, 300 push-ups, whatever, but we did it together. Cosmo showed us what the 100 Navy SEAls was.
And he's going to show us today.
Yeah.
The research was just as forensic for those departments, including sound, in terms of making sure that everything that they were responsible for was honoring the truth of the memories. And a good example is the pink curtains that are present in that scene. Ray remembers those curtains very clearly.
Prior to this moment, these characters aren't in conflict, so you see them in a state of idleness, and you see them interacting with each other, the kind of quite nauseating boredom sometimes when they're out there. And the film lets that breathe. You're introduced to all of these characters without any backstory at all or exposition. So it really takes its time.
Now contrast that to a grenade being thrown in, and when that grenade hits the ground, just like everything else is heightened, that resonates with me. Like when I heard that thing hit the ground, I've never heard a grenade hit concrete that close to me, but when I heard it, I knew what it was.
When looking up to Joseph Quinn screaming grenade, he really did do that, because that sound, Ray brings it up earlier, that you could hear someone brushing their hair, you can hear a fly on the wall. You know, it was very quiet in that room, so to hear that drop was very foreign, but they knew exactly what that was right away. And so when I scream grenade, that was not just, you know, I didn't add any lyrics and improv, nothing. That was Ray in the moment, standing up, putting everything on, exactly how Ray did it, going to the corner next to the staircase, exactly how Ray did it, letting off some shots, exactly how Ray did it.
In this particular instance, there was a piece of SFX involved, which was a kind of air cannon with a lot of dust and debris, which was positioned under the table, roughly where the grenade, or as close to where the grenade landed as possible, which really just, in a sort of kind of loud, percussive way, will just eject a big blast of air, and with it, a lot of debris and smoke. And in terms of the stunt itself, in many ways, I would have preferred it if there was a stunt person involved at that moment, but Cosmo Jarvis really did not want there to be a stunt person, and just threw himself off the table again and again and again. The reason I didn't want that is because I thought if he breaks his arm, which he could do, this film is screwed. And so I didn't want that to happen, but Cosmo insisted upon it. After a while, you just give up. You say, like, if you really want to do it, knock yourself out, or don't knock yourself out, but keep doing it.
It completely changes the nature of the film, because then they realize Elliot sustains an injury, and it becomes clear that they need to get a Cassavac out of there. So it's a different film after this moment.
This scene was one of the biggest scenes for sort of this transition for us. When we started rehearsals, we all had these previous sort of expectations. I remember we first did it and we were all like out of breath, panicked, shaking, and it was just like not the reality. Like these people, these men, they saw combat a lot. And what was fascinating was how there might be an injury, but they have full control. You know, they are pretty calm, where maybe in other war films that we've seen, you expect high intensity explosions. They're gonna go out, they're gonna kind of rip it up, and like that wasn't the case. They checked in with each other, they gathered their gear, they stayed calm, they reorged, they got out of there, and that was a real shift, I think, for us, of really understanding sort of their mindset.
Frank! Tommy! Elliot, you good?
Going into boot camp, which was a sort of 3.5-week period that kind of preceded the shooting portion of this experience, we kind of all embraced this sort of military style hierarchy. You know, we all tried as much as possible to kind of operate like a sort of military unit, so that really the shooting experience could be an extension of our training. We all remained equals throughout the entire experience, obviously, but we did all kind of lean into the structure and the chain of command, just for the purpose of being to kind of operate more authentically, and also make sure that we were kind of like organized, and we could also sort of act sort of semi-independently from the crew, while also collaborating with them when necessary.
The first objective is safety. You know, we're going to be doing very close proximity shooting, very kinetic, long takes, fast shooting. You guys are going to be tired, going to be stressful. We focus just a lot on safety, muzzle awareness, safety manipulations, making sure guys are really safe.
We rehearsed the film like a play almost, and we broke it down into sequences, which we would then show to our brilliant directors. Yes, everything that we learned definitely informed what we were shooting, and it saved time.
Being able to work with Ray and the fact that I got to play Mr. Ray Mendoza as, you know, he is co-directing, co-writing it, it was very much of a pleasure and an honor. I was very lucky enough, actually one of the only ones who had him throughout the whole process. A lot of our veterans or a lot of the guys who are our true-to-life counterparts would come to set, but me, I had him every single day. As much as it was pressure for me and a lot of pressure on my shoulders to get it right and to get his story right, because again, this is a very traumatic experience in his life. Honestly, I like to think that he had way more pressure on his shoulders, you know, casting me, telling such a personal story on his behalf, but also on behalf of millions of other veterans out there who've had a similar experience no matter what war you were in. And I'm just grateful that he trusted me with such a personal story. That was the first real time that I got to really step by step work with Ray on every single detail. He remembered that specific scene, that memory he remembered it a lot very easily. And so when it came down to everything, I like to think that everything, you know, you see in that scene specifically when it comes to Ray was everything he did exactly that. I mean, in all honesty, I think the only thing that was different was that I think I let off one magazine when in reality Ray let off 3.
The thing that I think is really interesting about this scene as well kind of typifies what separates Warfare from potentially some of the other films in respect of how they've represented people in warfare environments. The response in most other films would probably be sort of slicker and, dare I say, made to look kind of cooler. And actually what you see is guys having to deal with the reality of getting all their gear together, sort of assembling their thoughts and sense of coherency in real time. And like you say, you kind of are forced to sort of, you know, watch it play out, and the filmmakers definitely wanted to let it breathe and have the audience kind of be there right with us. And in that respect, the film really does manage to, I think, do something that doesn't feel fictionalized or dramatized, but rather more truthful.